I feel nothing but pain. Like, seriously, I don't envy people who do research and statistics. Just getting a straight answer out of people should not be as hard as pulling teeth. However, I did get what I needed, and it was a sobering experience to learn that opinions on 40k aren't as dramatic as ragebait channels make them out to be. Yes, today we are talking about the Primaris Marines, in addition to Warhammer that is only 7 years old as of this video's upload. The reason I want to cover this is because I am tired of seeing ragebait videos that either cherry-pick comments and say the whole community hates them, or give a lukewarm opinion with a ragebait title. It doesn't give an accurate representation of the actual opinions on them, and never really talks about them in an honest or fair light. Now, Primaris Marines were released with the introduction of 8th edition in June of 2017 to a very mixed reception. Don't get me wrong, there were plenty of people that didn't like their inclusion. They had an extremely limited model pool, too many of their new designs didn't feel like traditional Space Marines, and it felt like GW was telling Marine players to basically start over and replace their entire army. But there was also the other side of the argument. The limited model pool made it easier for newcomers to get a handle on them. The more inclusive boxes made them less confusing to build, and the new designs went over great with newcomers that were into power armor, and to others felt like a natural redesign. And you could still play Firstborn Marines with them, and both offered their own distinct advantages. However, when it came to the fluff, there was a lot of confusion and tilted heads. These guys just appeared right the hell out of nowhere in the finale of 7th edition, along with Belisarius Call, some random tech priest who was a central figure who was introduced with no background information either. To a lot of people, it felt like Games Workshop was just dropping in random retcons and changes to the fluff for no reason. Which I am surprised that everyone who had been with Warhammer for more than a year was taken aback by the millionth retcon. But were Primaris Marines just added in with no thought? Well, no. With the release of the Horus Heresy series in 2006, there were hints throughout the series that the different legions and Mechanicus groups were trying to improve the base Space Marine. Hell, the book Deliverance Lost has the Raven Guard Legion actually create new and improved Marines that they dub the Raptors. Marines that were ready to go from childhood to full-fledged Marine in 80 hours, who were stronger, faster, and better than the average Marine. That project would end in failure because of Alpha Legion shenanigans, but the point here is that along with the Black Shields fluff, GW and the writers were building up to something. And we finally got that backstory in the book Wolfsbane, where not only is Belisarius Call's backstory revealed, but the genetic research for the Primaris as well. The entire plot of the book, Sons of Selenar, is defending the machine that will help create the Primaris Marines as well. So obviously, they weren't shoehorned in! They had a backstory that was released at the same time! Oh. That complicates things. Okay, look. The reality is that designing new editions, fluff, and models takes time. Now, we know this was all planned, because, well, 8th edition was a whole revamp to Warhammer's gameplay, and GW was struggling to bring in new players and hobbyists after the disaster that was Tom Kirby's "we will cater to middle-class whales" financial approach. So Games Workshop needed to make their poster boys more appealing, and give the newcomers something to latch onto. New Marines who are just as lost in the world of 40k as their new player? Makes perfect sense. As well, Wolfsbane was being drafted and written while 8th edition was being worked on, so clearly the story was there. But for unknown reasons, a book that would have helped with the build up to 8th edition was released nearly a full year after 8th edition's release. And the sad part is, unless the author Guy Haley or any of the design team is willing to spill the beans, or is it under an NDA, we will never know what was supposed to come first. Either way, it's clear there was a plan. We just don't know if the releases got botched, or if this was how it was supposed to be. Now, of course, at the end of the day, this was still a massive shakeup to 40k, but the online space was swamped with videos talking about how Primaris killed 40k, or that it was the worst decision GW ever made, with very little room for nuance. But since Warhammer not only survived, but is now thriving, I think it was an extreme overreaction. and with the research and numbers I came out with, yeah, it was a mixed bag of opinions, but what new thing isn't a mixed bag? So, to get my data, I asked on Twitter, Blue Sky, TikTok, and my Discord server what was everyone's opinion on Primaris Marines. The idea is that I would take positive, negative, and neutral responses and chunk them into digestible data. Now note, I only have a limited reach, and of course, I am not able to ask every last person their true feelings. This graph represents the general feelings on them. Positive doesn't just mean absolute love, it ranges from I like them but they have problems to I love them. Just like how negative is I don't enjoy them but I like these few things to absolute hate for them, with meh being people feeling neutral towards them. Here are the numbers I got, and yes, I did scroll through those comment sections and tally each one. Note, the comment numbers most likely have changed since the recording of this video. I tallied all these numbers on October 29, 2024, so if you go to find these posts, just know they might have changed or people may have gone in to add their 2 cents after I made the video, so be aware of that. I also went out of my way to grab some of the comments from all the sites. Some unique opinions, some common ideas, and some comments I agree with, disagree with, and some from fellow creators. So, here are those. I was there. It's a way to make more models and sell them, and to introduce new stuff. I honestly prefer the old helmet style, but I like the design. Yeah, the Primaris Marines' new designs were mixed at best. A lot of people preferred the uniformity and the rather large, bulky designs because they were easier to paint and easier to just make uniform, but a lot of other people also missed the uniqueness of each individual Marine and how rugged they looked. So yeah, I could totally get why someone has this opinion. I can't talk to the user experience side of things, where a lot of the complaints came from, but from the narrative/lore perspective, it's interesting and needed. The Imperium needed the upgrade. I'm of 2 minds on this opinion. One, GW did need to shake up the Imperium a little bit because we've been stagnated for so long, but at the same time, I do get the opinion that the Primaris Marines were a bit of a dramatic jump. I do feel the lore implementation and how they were brought in was badly handled, but if GW just keeps the same designs and never changes things, the universe could become stagnant like the Imperium. Yeah, along with the other problems that I brought up in the video, GW hadn't really done anything to move 40k along for like 2 decades. Hell, we were stuck on the 13th Black Crusade for well over a decade at this point. So the Primaris Marines, although a drastic shakeup, were something that were needed to push the plot along and raise the stakes up even a little bit. In my opinion, it's kinda neat how the players and in lore, people are having the same argument. Yeah, no, out of fluff, it's a very cheeky way for the writers to go, yeah, we know some people aren't gonna like it, so here's some in-lore stuff for the people that want someone to agree with them. It was honestly a pretty cheeky move, but it also helps expand upon the Primaris Marines, and expand upon those that would obviously find problems with them. The old ones are just iconic, and I can understand why people want to be nerdlings and stick to them, but in terms of quality, detail, and creativity, the Primaris helps with building new and unique chapters, since we can't be sure Call didn't just use untainted Trader Gene Seed, which was previously forbidden, so lots of homebrewing potential, which I love. Yeah, agreed, the old ones are iconic, and it's very hard to see the old stuff go. But at the same time, yeah, I do appreciate that GW made the models not only easier to build and paint, but also gave people a new creative way to make their own Space Marine chapters. Though the creating and using Trader Gene Seed for new Space Marine chapters has always been a thing, it wasn't just with the Primaris Marines. When they came out, I didn't like them on tabletop because they made Firstborn pretty obsolete, because they still had 1 wound back then. Now I don't mind them. In lore, I think they're cool as hell. I wouldn't say Primaris made Firstborn obsolete, as Firstborn were the only ones that could really use Land Raiders, Rhinos, Razorbacks, and the other transports for a long time. Nowadays, yeah, it really does feel that Primaris have made Firstborn obsolete. But back then, we didn't have that very many options for Primaris Marines. Lore-wise, love the idea. As far as the game, it feels like coming out with the next Power Ranger series to make more money. So yeah, I've been seeing a lot of this kind of comment that, like, Primaris Marines were a cash grab, or like a very bad cash grab. Guys, gals, non-binary pals, this take is about as hot as a goddamn frozen iceberg. Yeah, of course it's a cash grab. They're a company trying to sell you models. The entire game is a cash grab. They make cool game and fun models for you to buy and play with. Like, come on! This isn't a take. They are necessary. They move the narrative forward in lore, they look better in art, they're easier to customize / kit bash in the hobby, and on the tabletop, they look intimidating like they should. I don't agree with this. They weren't necessary to move the plot along. In fact, they didn't move the plot along. It was Abaddon blowing up Cadia that moved the plot along. As well, they aren't easy to customize in kit bash. The Firstborn were actually way easier to customize in kit bash, but even then, they were also a problematic nightmare when it came to a few things. Primaris Marines just are a bit harder because, well, like I said, stagnant poses. I like the new scale better, but the design for a lot of Space Marine stuff in general is getting too smooth sci-fi and less grimdark gothic for my taste. When they first came out, fully agree. They were very smooth and really getting away from the grimdark sci-fi. But when 9th and 10th edition dropped and we got a whole bunch of new models, nah, they're going back to the grimdark, and I approve of that. I'm annoyed that they represent modern game design, shifting 40k away from 40k's foundation of squad-based, company-level engagements. No more special or heavy weapons organically integrated into squads. I agree that Primaris represent a change to the game of 40k, but as well, I need to push back on this. Back then, it was extremely annoying trying to customize your Marine models. You had to buy 2 separate boxes, or even 3 if you wanted a lot of special weapons that many of your Marines could take. If I wanted to take a plasma gun and a las cannon, I'd have to buy a whole different kit just to get that las cannon, which was way more expensive than you think it was. Lore-wise, I think the general opinion overall was a bit similar to female Custodes actually. Most were opposed to how it just magically showed up one day with almost no build-up or anything than anything else. Also, it was innovation to setting that was meant to be pure regression. Model-wise, people were happy for the proper scale-up, some being irked that the models were more plain than the Firstborn cosmetics across chapters. Again, refer back to the beginning of the video. I don't know what the plan was with Primaris Marines and introducing them. Were they supposed to get Wolfsbane first to lead up to them? Or was it just that you dropped them in and then built at the backstory later? And another problem is that GW has always dropped stuff in just at random. I don't get why it's been such a big problem now when everybody's been fine with it for years. Lore-wise, their intro was a mess and is a mess. IRL-wise, GW wanted real-scale Marines, but didn't want to make all the Firstborns obsolete immediately. So we had this interim period, which hasn't left yet. I don't know if Primaris Marines were supposed to be true-scale Marines. It really doesn't feel like it with how GW and Black Library has written them, but until we get confirmation from the designers or anyone else from GW, this opinion's gonna have to sit, really in the realm of maybe. I remember when they initially released, both me and the people in my friend group weren't a fan of how bland they were. It felt like a lot of interesting parts of Space Marines were being discarded. To be fair, they have gotten a lot better, but initially they seemed very dull. I find it really odd. A lot of people say the Primaris Marines are really dull and that the Firstborn were a lot more interesting, but when you read a lot of the old 40k books where Firstborn Marines are prominent, they're the most boring goddamn thing in those books. A lot of the new 40k books out there make Primaris Marines a lot more interesting because a lot of them are from 30k, and a lot of them are thrown into the Grimdark universe with just no knowledge of how it operates or how it works, so they're completely thrown for a loop and we have to learn along with them, which honestly makes their story a lot more interesting than, I need to kill the local Xenos or local Chaos Worshipper because that's all I was designed to be! Roar! Kind of story writing, Replacing a lot of an army is painful, especially due to the money investment, but the models being larger, proportions more accurate, was nice. I get that replacing an army can be extremely painful and very time-consuming and costly. I do get that a lot. But at the same time, you are eventually going to have to replace those models anyway. GW has updated the ranges of other models, and if you wanted to play in the competitive scene, which I know not a lot of people do, but if you wanted to, you'd have to replace those models anyway with newer models or bases. And as well, these are convenient ways to replace broken models or armies that break while you're moving, or unfortunate accidents that happen. So I do get the problem here, I just think there are other solutions to it. I just liked it out of principle. I think GW focuses way too much on them, which makes it the only army many play, and then GW focuses on it too hard, and then the cycle repeats. This is more of a problem with Space Marines as a whole, rather than just the Primaris Marines. And yeah, GW is going to focus on the poster boys. Space Marines make them the most money, so of course they're going to focus on the army that makes them the most money. It's kind of a double-edged sword. I started playing the game in 2017, so to me, it was just strange why people were so attached to these stubby, awkward Space Marines versus what I considered normal Space Marines. The amount of time and effort a lot of people put into their models makes them love and invest into them more. So yeah, it was understandable that a lot of people would get sore about having to, add in new models that would slowly replace the old ones. It does genuinely feel bad when your old models feel like they're obsolete compared to the new ones. The lore was completely stupid. Some random tech priest one-up the fucking Emperor? Should have been released as true scale Marines and have Kyle just be the guy who created the new armor for them. Buddy, have I a fucking Chaos Marine to sell to you? I love them. They're the reason I bought the 8th edition launch box. I sold off the Death Guard as I had no interest. I wish they weren't monopose, but other than that, I think they look worlds better than the old Firstborn kits. Again, the idea of the Primaris Marines was to get new blood into Warhammer 40k, and they more than succeeded with that. As well, making the models a lot easier to build really helps with the overwhelming amount that people have to build to, play the game, or, get ready to paint them. It really did help in that instance. And as well, yeah, I really like the Primaris Marine designs myself. I like them, but still feels like the Firstborn kits and Heresy kits are more flexible on kit bashing. Fully agree, Primaris Marines at the end of the day are easier to build and a lot easier to paint, but Firstborn allow for more customization and a lot more craftier designs. So yeah, I hope this video showed that a lot of the rage bait videos here on YouTube saying that everyone hated Primaris or Primaris nearly killed Games Workshop in Warhammer 40k are full of shit and that you shouldn't really listen to them. As well, this was a pain in the ass to research. I'm never doing this kind of video again. Though, if you enjoyed it, please like, comment, and subscribe, and put in the comments about your feelings about Primaris Marines. Though, if it's anything to do with like DEI or wokeism, fuck you, I'm deleting your comment. Okay, bye. How can we make these Space Marines more Space Marines? I don't know, have we tried shoving them in more Space Marines yet?